Comic books and graphic novels often get discounted in the world of literacy. Too often, they are not counted by elitists as real reading. The goal of reading, in any format, is to always be able to receive information. On this episode, I speak with Erica Ware, a librarian with 18 years in library systems and 11 years overall in the profession. Over the years, she served as a teen specialist and branch manager/librarian, always finding joy in fostering community through initiatives such as book clubs and her beloved graphic novel clubs. Beyond the shelves, Erica is a dedicated film nerd, thanks to her Georgia State University film degree, and a lifelong fan of DC, Marvel, and indie comics. We chat about her journey into management, how she used low literacy statistics to create an impactful graphic novel program, her views on whether we as a community are doing a good job archiving our history, and, as always, where she sees her life after libraries.
So how are you doing, Miss Erica?
I'm doing well. Thank you for inviting me to this podcast.
I'm excited. I'm interested to hear about you in general and stuff.
Okay.
For clarity for the people listening, Erica and I used to work together at a library system. I'm not going to say which one because she still works there and I don't.
Yes, I do. So, yes, it was not that long ago, but it feels like long ago.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So we're just going to jump right in. I ask everyone the same question starting out. So what is your library story? Like, how did you get into the field? What's your alma mater? Just take us through that whole thing.
So my library story, I don't technically like to say it's unique, but I started off, I went to a school. I started off wanting to be in film, actually. Writing was my go-to, but I was learning all about film. I transferred into Georgia State, and by halfway through my program, I realized I did not want to work in film. So I didn't, at that time, because this is the early 2000s, it was uprooting my life to move to LA. There was no Tyler Perry Studios. There was none of that. It was, you prepare for film here to go to LA, to go to grad school or do something like that. And at that time, I just wasn't interested in doing that. It just didn't feel right. And so I knew I wasn't going to do it like halfway through my program, but I finished my program because I started it. I might as well finish it. I've been all the money I've spent. So I went and got a job afterwards. I was working in corporate America. I was laid off from corporate America. And so my local library was hiring. And that's how I got into librarianship. I started off in actually youth services. So I was a teen librarian, teen youth services at the time. And I decided I liked it. I was like, this is a lot of fun. And working with teens, because I was in my 20s at that time. And so it was a lot of fun. And I learned so much in my first 2 years. Housing market crashed. More, the library I was working at experienced significant cuts at that time. And so I was able to stay on, but our hours were cut and things like that just happened. And I continued to work with teens, but around that time, I decided to go to, I was like, I need to go to library school because this is kind of what I want to do. And so I went to library school. It took me about 3 years. Valdosta State is where I went. It was totally online. It worked for me. Doesn't necessarily work for everybody, but it worked for me. And I had a blast in library school. Then I had a blast around my last year of school. I took a break because I got married and I couldn't do both because I was working on my master thesis at that time. And I was like, ooh, I need to take a break. Got married, went back to school, finished it out. And around that time, I was presented with the offer, do you want to be a manager? Had I ever managed before? No.
Right.
But it was a way for me to use my degree that I was getting and actually when I became a librarian. So I was like, sure. And some of them was retiring. So it was just kind of they were like, we're going to need somebody here. And I appreciate my supervisor at that time. She really poured into me. And then I appreciate my supervisors after that because they poured into me. And I found out I was kind of good at being a manager, but it was not something that I would have fallen into and chosen to be. When I went in, when I went to school, I wanted to be more on the digital side of archiving. But my program, they were gearing into this partnership with Clayton State that never happened because Clayton State got a new president and he kind of killed the program. So it was supposed to be like a dual programship of like, let's, you could get your MLIS and you could get your archive at the same time. And you
Mm,
wouldn't have to go to two different schools. And that's the thing.
yeah.
I now would have to go to two different schools to do this. So yeah, that was my journey. Kind of interweaved into there. Like I never started out to want to work in libraries. I never, it wasn't a dream or a goal or anything like that. It was just something that happened.
Yeah, I think the more people I talk to, I think that's kind of the story. Like some people, especially like people of color that I've spoken to, we just kind of stumble into it. Um, or just by some sort of happenstance, we're told about, oh, you should work in libraries and, get your degree and all that kind of stuff. I started as a part-time person, and I only did it because I couldn't find like full-time work that interests me while I was still in school. So I worked part-time at a party planning place, and my aunt worked for one of the largest systems in Georgia. And she was like, well, hey, they're doing like mass hiring for part-time. Like I can, like, we go nepotism this thing. And I was like, cool. I didn't like where I was because it was far, but I I think that was the entryway. And then I met my mentor when I got a full-time position, and that just sent me
Yeah.
down the path and stuff. So that's cool. How long have you been in the field, like, altogether?
Altogether, it has been about 18 years altogether.
Okay,
Yeah. So
cool.
yeah, because it's 2025. So yeah,
Nice.
since COVID, I have to remember what year it is.
True. That's so true. Yeah. Quarantine was a crazy time.
It's crazy,
Uh,
crazy time.
yeah. Um, so, can you talk a little bit about your journey as a Black woman in this field? Like, have there been any challenges, big or small? And then have there been any like rewarding moments related to your identity in this profession?
So challenges, I think I've always worked in places where I am. I started off in a place where it was a mixed variety of people, diverse, um, and there were not necessarily challenges from within the organization, a lot of challenges from outside the organization. When you're in a diverse environment that has been predominantly white, unfortunately, they're used to seeing those people behind the desk. And so it's been more from that side of changing demographics in places where that were predominantly white, turning into mixed areas. And I had a very supportive supervisor who didn't play about that. I had support from fellow team members also who was just like, this is not a place where racism can grow. Um, as I've gone in my journey, I think it really changed for me when I became a manager, not only because of the color of my skin, but because of my age at the time also. I was just 30, like on the dot. I was the youngest person in there. I was one of the few people of color where they were putting me. And I had to gain a lot of trust from my colleagues because, yeah, I was young. They didn't think I knew what I was doing. And I don't think they really trusted me with what they already had going on. It's a lot of protectiveness that happened. But over time, that changed because they saw me in action. They saw how I worked. They saw that they could trust me, that they could see what I wasn't doing was not trying to come in and necessarily change what they were already doing, but I was trying to learn also from them and see, okay, how can we make it better? This is what you guys are already doing. You guys could basically run this branch without me, but I'm here to help you. And I think once we went through that, they looked at me a little bit different. I could see it. I could see it over, I was there only 3 years, and I could see it in the progress of it, and seeing how their view of me changed. And it was like, oh, okay. You know, still felt some of those challenges from the outside. Again, still a transitioning area. A lot of people did not necessarily agree with some of the holidays that we celebrated, such as Hispanic Heritage. Right now, we're in Asian Pacific Islander Month, Black History Month. It was a lot of pushback there, saying, uh, where's the White History Month? That was a question I got quite a few times. So um, that kind of opened my eyes because I was like, you know, I'm not gonna say I've never faced racism. I grew up all my life in different places and times and places. I was a military brat, so I know what it's like to go to foreign countries and people look at you just a little bit differently. I know what it's like to live in the United States and face the same things. So, it just kind of what it is. But the challenges, um, as an African American woman, I think sometimes when I walk into the room and I say I'm a librarian, some people go, "Oh," you know, "Oh," or when I walk into conferences and I see I'm one of few, I'm not, because that's not what it's like for me on a local level. I see a lot of me around me,
Yeah.
and I'm surrounded by a lot of people who are like me. But yeah, those are the challenges, that I see.
Okay. Any rewarding moments?
Lots of rewarding moments. When like I said, didn't start out to want to work in libraries, but I think working with teens was one of the most rewarding moments. Not to say that management doesn't have its rewarding moments, but working with teens was really rewarding because they have a view of the world that I sometimes, it was so refreshing to see because, I didn't think of myself as like, "Hmm, okay, I'm guiding, not like a teacher or something like that, but still in the same realm of they're coming to the library for a reason. They're coming to the library to find what they need, sometimes back then to get help with what they needed too, because the digital divide was still very 10 years ago, almost 20 years ago now, was greater than it is today. Nobody, cell phones were far and in between in kids' hands. And so the rewarding part was to see someone's eyes open. And I almost get that feeling of like when educators say that, like working with students in school, it's like when a kid gets something. And we used to do programming, and just they would just have so much fun. And that was it was like, I'm in my 20s going into my 30s, and it's like I'm having fun, but I got bills and I got all these things and I'm paying, it's not as fun, student loans aren't fun and anything like that. And their view of kind of, I love to see them pick up something and get excited about it. On the opposite side of that was when the parent would come along and be like, no, that's not, you know. So it changed my view of what you could do. when you actually being a librarian. Because at that time I wasn't. I was thinking about going to library school. I was studying, and then I went to library school, so I'm in my program, and so still working with teens and youth, and I was like, this this is this is what I want to do. You know,
Cool. Yeah. Student loans are no joke. It's
still dealing with them.
still dealing with them. They're not going
10 years
away.
later, they're not going away.
They're not
They're
going
not
away.
going away.
Not going
Yeah.
away. Um, so you mentioned earlier that you started out in sort of youth services and everything, and in your current position at your current branch, you used to run a program called Graphic Novel Book Club.
Hmm.
Um, I would, I mean, just kind of looking at the content, would you say that that program used to be geared more towards adults or like teens or just any demographic that likes graphic novels?
So um, when we came up with that club, it actually was spawned off of something else that I was assigned at that time. Now, because I had the youth services background, I knew just how popular graphic novels was, especially with young men. Teen boys, they love manga, they love graphic novel. That was their thing, and I loved comic books growing up, and so I read lots of comic books growing up. So I knew when women, girls still read graphic novels, but graphic novel was kind of something kind of that came about in the '90s, where you get all of these like popular, just like, you're like, oh, 10 years ago we did the death of Superman. We need to bound it together, and so it was a way for publishers to make some more money. So when I started working in libraries again, I started seeing that pop up, and I saw how it wasn't when I was going to the library as a kid. We used to check out comic books, get the comic books, you bring it back, very flimsy, and now we have these beautifully bound graphic novels, still a little bit flimsy, but better than those comic books, and a little bit cheaper. And so I saw how not just youth, but adults were checking that out at the same time. And so I had a project around that time um, that was to do a SWOT analysis of the demographics of our area uh, where I worked. And I was looking at first of all, the graduation rate, the rate of literacy in the area. And the rate of literacy, which meant eighth grade level, it changed, but what really shocked me was the eighth grade level literacy rate was below 60% for my area. And I said, what's going on here? And the graduation rate was not very much higher. It was around 70, 75%, somewhere in there. And this was, gosh, the 2010 census information. We haven't even gotten to the 2020 yet. We were in the 2010s using that information and some of the other numbers that were gathered from places like United Way and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, how can we get more young men to come into the library, and not just teens, but we were talking about from an age of like 15 to 25, 28. That broad stance there. And a colleague and I, we thought about it, and we were like, graphic novels are really popular. This is also during a time where the Marvel franchise is exploding. I forget what movie was. I think it was. It wasn't Endgame, but it was the one before Endgame. I mean, it was just a lot going that was about to premiere around that time. So that's what we did. We said maybe we could use this, and it did not start off as of what it was. It was supposed to be something where they came in, they brought their favorite graphic novel, and it was just something we would discuss. It had to switch up because we were dealing with a pandemic. Pandemic happened. We had started planning it at the end of 2019 to go into spring of 2020. And so it had to switch up a little bit and it became a virtual graphic novel club. And so the um, what he and I decided to do was take one subject and do an extensive research on it, giving the background, giving something about the characters, and then bringing what we like, what the favorite was of that. And it was a lot of intense research you have to do just on these series and these characters. Of course, you start off with the big ones. You know, you got your Supermans and your um, everybody loves Spider-Man, things like that. And you get into the when we were starting to break things down, we really wanted people to get interested in not just what they were seeing on the screen when you see the movies, but what really makes comic books work. And it is one of those things when I was working with teens, parents did not like graphic novels. They rejected graphic novels. Actually, they did not think of them as real reading. But I knew just because you can get words that are on an eighth grade reading level in graphic novels, in comic books, in manga, certain mangas sometimes. And so I knew that. And so we were like, we can get more people reading by reading graphic novels. They don't really think they're reading when they're reading. They think they're just reading comic books. So, and that's what it started off as. And it blossomed into something that I never could have imagined. We were doing bi bi-week, well, not bi-weekly, but bi-monthly meetings. So every 2 weeks we were
Mhm.
doing a graphic novel. Like, so we would have to turn it around in 2 weeks. So we do all this research, and we were working. He was better at Marvel, and I was better at DC, and so we would do our own research on whatever character we picked or whatever character the public picked. Because sometimes we would do like, what do you guys want to see us do next? And yeah, and it was a it was a labor of love, really, because we both love doing that, and we had a lot of support for the first almost almost 2 years. We had a lot of support from our local administration, and then things changed, and he left, and it was not something I could do by myself at that time because I'm still
Mhm.
managing. And
Yeah.
so I'm still the manager, and he got promoted. And so we had to kind of put it on hiatus. That's kind of
Okay.
how we kind of just, it kind of fell apart after that. And, but we knew there was a goal there to get that number up to show people that it doesn't matter what you read and how you are consuming it, just continue to do it because I every day I run into people, especially when I have this shirt on, and they're like, "Man, when was the last time?" I haven't been in the library since I was in high school, and I'm like, "You should come by,"
Right.
like you because they think of it as just this place where I go to study or to I'll read, and I was like, "But there's so much more." I was like, "Just continue to read, even if you're listening."
Mhm.
I have people who don't even walk into the library anymore. They're just using digital services like Libby and Hoopla and all these things, and still reading though. And I was
Yeah.
like, it's important because I haven't looked. I think the last time I looked at those numbers, they didn't grow very much. I think it may have got to about 61% for my area, but
Mhm.
there is a very big gap, and I know this now because I also have a young person who's in public school system, and the getting kids to read these days has become even more of a challenge.
Mhm.
But I said, hey, graphic novels are still there because he loves your what's that, Dog Man and
Mhm.
Captain Underpants.
Captain Underpants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He loves all of them. So yeah.
Yeah. Reading is graphic novels are real reading.
Yeah,
Comic books
yeah,
are real reading. Audiobooks are real reading. That is a hill I will die on. Um,
continuously.
and nonstop. Um, yeah, it honestly, it doesn't matter how you get it as long as you get it. Um, the medium by which you get the information is irrelevant, but um, but every possible medium you can get information from is accessible in your local library.
Another
Shameless,
plug.
right?
Shameless plug
Another
for
plug,
local libraries.
another plug,
Yeah.
right? Like anybody that isn't like library related is gonna listen to this, but whatever. I'm hoping
It may. It
they
may.
might. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Um, yeah. So let's switch gears a little bit because you gave a lot of information about the former graphic novel club and everything, and answered pretty much every question that I had about it. So
Oh,
you're making this
okay.
easy. Might be the world's shortest podcast. No, it's not going to be. Uh,
Mm.
so what are you? And I like how I'm phrasing the question now, because normally I ask like, what's your favorite book or what's a book you can read over and over again. But in the first podcast episode with Tracy
Yeah.
Hall, she kind of was like, well, I can't really name like a favorite book, but I can tell you
Yeah.
what books are occupying my time.
I heard. I
So
heard that.
yeah. So what books are currently occupying your time?
So um I'm a part of a book club. I host a book club at the library right now. So a lot of books occupy my time. I have I just finished Arsenic and Adobo, Asian Pacific Islanders Month, and that was a really good one. It's a cozy mystery, as we like to say. It was good. Um, how to how to sell a haunted house. That
Mm,
was good. That one would surprise me. I was not expecting much from that. I think Grady Hendrix wrote that. He does kind of like southern horror lore, ghost
okay.
stories, vampires, things like that.
On
So
brand with Sinners right now.
yeah, yeah. So I
Okay.
read How to Sell a Haunted House in April before I saw Sinners, and then watching Sinners, I was like, this is on brand. This is yeah, but it's a good one. Currently, what's occupying my time is a nonfiction, which is "I'll Be Gone in the Dark" by Michelle McNamara. I remember when the book came out and it was hot because she had recently passed away, and she had figured out who the Golden State Killer was,
Mm,
which is a horrific serial killer from the 70s and the 80s. And he fell off the map and nobody knew who he was. And she figured it out. She was writing a book about it and she figured out who he was before she passed away. They caught him after she passed away. So it's just a book on what she was writing, and it's pretty. I think I've been on it for like 2 weeks, and it's. I like true crime. I don't necessarily read it a lot. I listen to a lot of podcasts, but this book goes into greater detail than any Dateline episode, any podcast that I listen to. So
mm,
I have to take it in small bites. I do my cozy reading. I do my, I recently reread also Parable of the Sower, Octavia
mhm.
Butler.
Yep.
Uh, that one I hadn't read, and it's been a long time. I
Yeah.
was in college when I read it the first time. Reread it recently, and I was like, oh, okay,
Yep.
excellent, still excellent.
Yep.
But whew, it's
Yep.
it's too on brand. So
Yep. She was a time traveler. I
yeah,
will stand on that.
I was like, ma'am,
Uh,
did you actually come to 2025?
right.
I was like,
She came and was like, "Oh, okay. I'm gonna write them a guidebook. I'm
yeah,
not gonna tell them what it is, but I'm gonna write it, and
I'm
we'll
gonna
see
write
who's
it.
paying attention." Yeah.
And people were paying attention, but I was like, this is too. I was like, oh, okay, okay, okay. But those are. the most recent things that have occupied my time and
Cool.
that I've enjoyed reading.
Nice.
Yeah.
No graphic novels in that?
I recently reread Eternals again.
Okay.
Now, I know it was not the masterpiece that people want to see on screen, but it's still my absolute favorite. I like the movie. I did. I love the Neil Gaiman book, and I've read the original too. With the Neil Gaiman, I guess he redid it like in the like 2010, around that era.
Mhm.
And I reread that one, and it was good. It's a classic, because it's such a, when you want to say what started Marvel off, here's the story. That's the story of Marvel. And Kirby's version is great too, but the artwork in this one is so much better. And the story is really good. But I know it's not a favorite among Marvel moviegoers, but it's a great. And according, and I know that the backlash of most Neil Gaiman works at this time, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, can 2025, 2024, 2025 stop revealing how horrible people are in real life?
Man.
I would
Man.
really, I like, not that we don't need to know these things, but I was just like, man, all of the things that I like, and I'm just like conflicted
Yep.
right now.
Yep.
Yeah, I actually went to a library, saw it on the shelf, and I was like, you know what, I need to read this. And I checked it out, and that's what it was. And I work in libraries every day, but I go to somebody else's library to check things out.
Hey, it's, it's like
Yeah,
that. It's
yeah.
like people who work at, certain restaurants,
And
they
they're
don't
like,
like eating there.
I'm not
Yeah.
eating that.
Like, no, I'm gonna go down the street. I'm gonna eat here.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, what is one thing that you will always be proud of?
Uh, ooh, always be proud of. I want to say there was getting my degree, when I got my MLIS. I didn't realize at the time what this journey would look like for me. I knew I wanted to be a librarian. I knew the concepts of being a librarian from working in a library. I had no clue the other, until I got to that era of like, you're a librarian now, which, this is one of my things with it when it comes to being a librarian, especially in the South. It's not a job that is appreciated.
Mm, mhm,
It's, oh, you're a librarian. Oh, great, you work with kids. You do this, you do that. Nope. I actually manage a branch, and again, another hill I will die on is, in order to be in this space of what being a librarian, especially in the South, you have to go into management.
mhm,
A lot of times it's working in those high areas where you could say I'm a librarian on staff, but I'm also managing people. And sometimes that works, but I will always be proud of that journey. It's not something I envisioned when I went to library school. It wasn't, oh, so I could be a manager, but it was something that I kind of fell into. And um, it's it's not anything that, against management or anything like that. I think it's just that, wanting to say we have a librarian on duty at every single branch. It looks good for the numbers.
mhm.
It's great for the numbers. It's not everybody's cup of tea, though. You know, it's exhausting. I'm gonna be honest. It's
Yeah,
exhausting.
yeah,
Uh, and I've been doing it for, and I think now 12 years, and it does a number to you, because it's like, this is where I saw myself. I was gonna be a archives archivist,
listen, I
scanning, digitizing.
My internship was in the cataloging department of the system that I worked for, my very first library system that I worked for, and
Mhm,
I was like, because again, that was my interest in
mhm,
school. I was like, "Oh, I get to, control the collection. I get to,
mhm.
put
Yep.
on new authors." And then I got an internship and I was like, "Nope. Mm-mm, no, thank you." Um, and it wasn't like the repetitiveness of
Mm,
cataloging
mhm,
definitely spoke to like the neurospicy side of
mhm.
me.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but I liked interacting with the public because it's never the same.
Never, never the same.
Working a desk, doing a
Mhm.
like you never know what your day is going to be like working in the public library. And I've tried to explain that to like non-library people, and they're just like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I was like, "So yeah, like somebody,
Mhm,
likely an unhoused
mhm,
person, decided that they were upset that
mhm.
someone else had beaten them to stealing the soap
Mhm.
and smeared excrement all over the wall in the bathroom. So no one,
Mhm.
so
Not
no, yeah,
nowhere nowhere in library school did you learn about that.
did not. That's a pod. I'm gonna do a
Mm-mm.
podcast episode about that. I'm gonna get all of us together and we're gonna do a live version of stuff I didn't learn in
Stuff I didn't
library
learn.
school.
Mine was, plumbing. I worked at a branch where one day there was something always with the bathrooms. There was something always with the bathroom. And the guy was like, "Well, just go in there, go under the sink with a wrench." And I was like, "I don't even have a wrench here.
Right,
Here we go." And we had to take the counters off at that time because it was protected. And I was like, "Sir, you're gonna have to come over here because there's water all over this floor, and because I'm not doing
I'm
it.
not doing that.
I'm not doing that." I was like, "I don't know who you think I am, but I'm not that person." I was like, "Nah,
Right. Like this
nah,
name
that
text
water
is
is that water."
Erica,
Yeah, I was
not
like,
Bob the Builder.
yeah, I was like, you got the wrong one." I was like, "Sir, I'm not getting down there. The water is just literally running. I don't even know how to get." He was like, "You just can't." I was like, "The sink is protected, sir. There is a whole big board here that you can come lift, but I'm not lifting." I had We had very few men on the staff, and if they were all over the age of 60. You No, I was like, and they had to come out there and do an emergency because everybody gets off at 4 o'clock. Like, you gotta come out here. Yeah, I'm not doing it, but it was fun. We had a good laugh. I was like, "I'll wait on you,"
Right.
but and our custodian, he didn't come in until like 9 o'clock because he cleaned overnight, and I was like, "Well, I mean, I can wait on him to come, but there's still water over this floor.
Everywhere.
There's water everywhere, so it's a busted pipe. I don't know how to turn the water off. Okay."
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I can show you where the plumbing books are. That doesn't mean I understand what's in them.
Yep. Don't know anything in them. It's a foreign language to me. Yeah.
Ah,
It's always
uh,
something.
always something. Um, what's the most surprising thing you've learned about yourself in your library career?
Oh. Mm. So the funny thing is that again, I always I started off in film, working behind the scenes. So I'm writing. I'm writing screenplays, doing stuff like that. I never thought I'd be the person out in the front, the quote unquote leader, that is leading other people. Management was never in my forefront, and not only that, like standing in front of groups of people that I probably thought I would never get a chance to talk to, get a chance to interact with, from government to local to local celebrities to talk about libraries. I, I didn't. That was never my thing. And the thing that surprised me the most was my journey was I was able to relate to a lot of people. Um, like I said, I was a military brat. I grew up in lots of different places, so people will be like, "Oh, where are you from?" No, that's not. I'm originally from here. I'm originally from Jackson, Mississippi. Well, you don't sound like that. And I was like, what is that supposed to sound like? They're like, they'd be so confused. And I'd be like, well, my dad was in the military. And so I lived in Japan for 4 years. Like my elementary career was there. And then I moved to Michigan for a little while. And going into middle school here in Georgia is really what I call home. But um, I never wanted to be on the like I never saw myself as I'm leading something. I just thought I'm going to be a screenwriter. I'm going to be with my laptop and writing, and I sell my screenplays, and I live a quiet life. And here I am, a librarian now, and not only that, a manager, and being able to share that story, share those points in my life for people to relate to say, hey, you may not think you need a library, but guess what? Somebody does. Uh, no, it is not just a place for the unhoused to be. That's not is one of the few free spaces we have left in this really world. I mean, where can you go and get the experience that you can at a library, no matter what your background is or what you look like or you know any of those things. And I said, that has surprised me the most because I was perfectly fine being in the background. And this job and this career has given me the opportunity to advocate on behalf of this free space that we are that is being on a daily basis attacked for, to me, no good reason, but I understand the evil behind it at the same
Mhm,
time. An uneducated mass is a good mass to control,
mhm.
and um, it's not just about reading; it's about having access to information. And I've never,
Free access to
yeah, free
information.
access to information because people say, "Oh, the argument I used to hear a lot going to commissioners meetings or talking to commissioners. Anybody could do this job. Why does it have to be a librarian? Like, this negativity towards it. I could, hire some high school students to come up here and check books out to people, and the arrogance behind that and not understanding. Well, if that's the case, if everybody has a computer in their home or access to a phone or all these things, um, why is there such a gap? Why is there such a gap? Um, oh, nobody needs access to computers. Everybody has a computer in their home. Says who? That's not what the numbers say. And these are numbers that are gathered every 10 years. That's not what they say. Access to information is still a big gap in some places. You may not think that for your area in the county, but internet is still hard to find. I mean, you're talking about satellite internet at this point in some places, in some rural places where there is no digital cable cords running under your house where you get high speed internet. You're getting satellite internet that is maybe 25 megabytes, per second. It's like, and we take it for granted, but yeah, I think that surprised me the most, that I'm the person in the room advocating for something that I think should be free for all. And it's 2025, and I'm still talking to people on a weekly basis about why this should still be free and why this should still be. Yeah, I was like, it's 2025. My gosh, how do you go backwards? How do you go backwards? I mean, We have so much at our fingertips, and yet it's a regression happening. I don't understand. And we could say it's to protect the children, but let's be honest. n- It is rare that I am at work and there's just a bunch of children in the adult section. They're probably running around, but they're not. They're not checking out books or looking. They're just this big fear of what about the kids? And I was like, guys, the kids are gonna be all right.
Mhm.
We all grew up. We're gonna be all right. You
Yeah.
know.
Um, I've seen a lot of recent library school graduates. Some of my mutuals on social media are have finished their MLS, and it's so cool to like see them because a lot of them. Um, I, like most people, started my social media, my TikTok account anyway, during the pandemic,
Mhm.
because people kept sending me stuff. And at one point, TikTok was like, "All right, enough with the free views. Like, download this app or leave us alone." Um, and so I downloaded it, and I was just like, "There's a voice missing in the world of librarianship." Like, there were a good amount of creators that had um, like cornered off certain aspects of librarianship and everything. But I didn't really, it took a while to find like creators that looked like me. Um, but even though some of them looked like me, they didn't necessarily deliver the, how can I say, the more realistic side of librarianship in the way that I did.
Mhm.
Um, and still do in certain aspects. So seeing them and watching them kind of, or meeting my mutuals in like their, some of them like their like early on journey in LIS, but a lot of them were like probably second year
Mhm.
or ending their first, going into their second year. And they would like DM me and ask me for advice and everything. I was also part of a mentorship program with the organization We Here,
Mm.
so I have mentees from that. I actually just
Mhm.
did a panel with them about career searching and jobs and all
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. Anyway, um, what? So yeah, I would get DMs, just soliciting advice and everything like that. So, w- what would you offer to someone who is either considering getting their
Mhm.
MLS or MLIS, depending on the institution you choose. I have an MLIS.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, what advice would you give to someone who's considering getting a library degree? And then what advice would you give to recent library school graduates?
Oh, so on them getting their library degree, I always tell them be open. Whatever your background is, wherever you came from, whatever you graduated with initially, use that. Use that. Be yourself. Embrace that. One of the things I thought of, like I said, mine was film. But every day, um, over the years, there are people who have I've worked with or who've worked under me who've decided to go to library school, and some of them I've kept up. They're like, hey, write could you write me a letter of recommendation or something? And I always tell them, hey, whatever you're taking into this, don't forget that that part of you, because librarianship to me could be whatever you want it to be. I love writing. Um, I don't necessarily, I'm not out here, pumping out screenplays, but I didn't forget that aspect of me also. Even when I started working in libraries, um, with teens, like, do you like film? Do you like, do you like this? Like, how can I incorporate that into my career? And so, and I also want, don't, not forgetting, what brought them there, but also where, think about where you want to see yourself looking like this, because every room you walk into, you're not always going to be welcomed or feel welcome. Um, and it has nothing to do with you. It's just sometimes that off-putting set of, oh, I didn't expect you to be here, or I didn't expect the person I didn't expect to see when I was meeting the librarian. Um, and I that don't ever forget your, it sounds a little cheesy, but your confidence. Um, like I said, I have not. It's been things that are external more for me than internal, and that is with working with a predominantly um, white administration, but they also were embracing that the demographics of their county was changing, and they knew they had to invest. There were other people that looked like me in the room too, but they experienced some of the same things I experienced. For some of those that had been there for, these were lifers. These are people who had worked, I mean, probably since the inception of the library in that particular city or community. So, and they had some, it was what we like to say in the South, just the sign of the times. Oh, this is just how we used to do it, and this is just how, you hear a lot of that. But don't ever forget that confidence when you walk into a room, because you are going to experience um, bias. It's um, I'm female and I'm a black woman. Now we are a predominantly female given industry. It is, we there are, what, 90% of us are female, maybe 10% are not. And the other part of that is like single digit. We're 7% last time I checked. So externally, when I've walked into rooms, I felt it. Like, you know, ah, okay, or you're speaking today, okay, and it has not been vocally said, but it's something you feel, and I think just letting them know that, because some of them may work with only people that look like them, and then they go somewhere else, and it's like, oh, uh, maybe they leave public sector, go into academia. It's run a little bit different. It looks a little bit different, but never forget that confidence. Never, you gotta hold your head up high, because somebody is gonna maybe say something crazy to you, and you have to keep your cool and keep it moving sometimes, and not be afraid to call it out. I'm not a ah, sometimes I have to catch some some of the things I may say in a moment of like, oh, that was a backhanded comment, compliment, or you know that was a weird way of saying that. When you point it out to somebody, it usually catches them off guard, and they're like, well, I didn't mean anything by that. You did, but hey, here we are. You did.
And
Yeah.
I just learned that it's a term for that. It's called negging.
Oh,
Yeah,
negging.
negging. I'm gonna spell
Okay,
it
so
because
not
I don't,
not
because it's
nagging, but
right,
negging.
negging. Yeah, because it
Yeah.
doesn't, because nagging is usually reserved for like
Mhm.
spouse,
Mhm.
women, wives, and
Mhm.
stuff like that. But yeah, negging is literally anyone that that kind of shrouds um
Mhm.
advice, or nitpicking in like a backhand
Mhm.
comment or something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that does happen quite a bit in
Mhm.
librarianship.
Yeah,
um
and it's unfortunate.
Very.
Again, every time I think it's 2025, guys. I thought we discussed this. Thought we discussed this. And to really, like I said, being a black woman, we sometimes come with this quote unquote stigma of we're too loud, we're too fabulous, as I like to say. And yeah, not everybody wants us in the room. Not everybody likes it, but they'll get over it. It's, because we're not going back. So you just gonna
Right.
have to get over it. You got to get over it.
Deal with it.
Deal with it. I'm gonna remember that negging.
See, you learn something new every day.
I do. I do.
Okay. Before I ask my final question,
Hmm.
is there anything that we did not discuss that you want to put on the table or anything like that?
Uh, Not that I can think of. No, I think we discussed a lot today.
We did, yeah. And I'm gonna say it well. I don't know because I don't want that to influence how you answer this question. So I'm gonna ask the last question and then I'll
Okay.
say what I want to say. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, lastly, what does life after libraries look like for you?
Okay. So I'm nowhere near retirement, but if a large sum of money fell into my lap, that life looks like a bookstore that
Mm,
is also a restaurant. Uh,
okay.
Something that my husband and I have dreamed over, looked over. But it's a bookstore, and it's going to have the wine bar and all that in it. But also it's going to be a he's a chef, so and it's a mixture of things that we both love. I like books. I like cozy reading spots. He likes to cook. And so what we would do is theme like menus on things that you find in books. Not necessarily cookbooks, quote unquote, but like just it would be a theme bookstore slash restaurant. That's the goal. That's the dream after librarianship. You I don't know. It's something because people are like, running a restaurant slash bookstore sounds really stressful. And it probably is. But you know what? Um, but it's just this. There's this thing of like being able to still work within the just thinking about literacy and how you could because everybody likes to eat. Most people like to read, and if you smash those two together, they sort of kind of work. So, but that's life after libraries. Don't know. Like I said, I'm far off from retirement. I got several years before I can retire. Maybe longer than that. I don't know with the way things are going.
So two things with your life after libraries. One, just a concept for, when you get that windfall of money and you open your
Hmm.
bookstore restaurant kind of a thing. There are like barbershops that, like either give like free haircuts for kids that read or they give like free meals and stuff like that. Can
Hmm.
totally you guys doing something like that.
Oh
Um,
yeah, no, the whole details into it. It's really cool
yeah.
because he was like, uh, because they're books and everything like that. Because I was like, I want to be able to give back.
Hmm.
Both of us have this really big thing about giving back. And he's like, I'm not trying to, he's opened several restaurants here in Atlanta. Um, some of them are not open anymore, but
Yeah.
um, but he designed menus for these people, these celebrities, and did all of those things. And he was like, the one thing that he missed the most about it was the giving back. Because a lot of times there wasn't a lot of giving back. It was these fine dining establishments where it's like charging
Yeah.
all this money for steaks and chicken and things like that. And he's more of like, we're scaling it back and being like, we want it to be more homesy and taking care of the community type of
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, it's just a concept right now. But every time we get a chance, we think about it, work on the business plan. Like, is this profitable? It
Right.
still has to be profitable.
Right.
But at the same time, it's something both of us love. The combination of both books
Yeah.
and food. So
Right.
yeah.
That's cool.
Hmm.
Um, And then the other thing, I don't know, because I say it quite often. I do a thing on TikTok of life after libraries. If
Hmm.
there ever is such a thing where um, you have to pivot
Mm.
from your current management position, I can totally and you said it at the beginning. There was no like when you were pursuing like
Hmm.
film and television. There's nothing. There was no
Yeah.
Tyler Perry Studios, but
Mm-mm.
there is one now.
There is
And
one.
I don't know who's getting paid to, you know,
Well, I know who's getting paid to write his stuff, and that's him.
no, I don't mean writing. I mean
Oh,
archiving.
oh,
I,
archiving.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
all the
um,
materials like that.
that's a
That
big thing.
that's a thing. Yeah, because
And
Beyonce has a librarian, and I was like, sign
as
me up.
yeah, as everyone should, especially someone on their level,
Hmm.
because we know that outside of this, are we really preserving our history? I and because I have this background in film, I know that there's a lot of lost African American history in film. We have
Hmm.
Paul Robeson's, we have the footage from early Hollywood, but
Hmm.
there was a whole Oscar um yeah, I think his name was Oscar. Yeah. There's a
Oh, Oscar
whole
Mitchell.
lot. Yes, Oscar
Yeah.
Michaud. There's a whole library that was lost just due to deterioration to film. And we have such little footage from that time, and it's like, are we, because we see what's happening on a national front when it comes to purging of certain histories, are we doing a good job doing it for ourselves? Or
Yeah.
because we're seeing that we need to keep our own histories and we need to keep them safe and
Yep.
safeguarded. And doesn't necessarily mean that just because it's online, it'll stay there. You can maybe screenshot something. You can maybe record something. You can maybe,
Library of Congress. Excuse
yeah,
me. Just like that.
exactly. Exactly. We're seeing this happen. It is the year of our Lord 2025, and we're seeing history being purged just because. And so, are we doing a great job archiving it for ourselves? And she has Beyonce has a librarian. There's a reason. There's
Hmm.
a reason because somebody needs to be capturing this. I know that Tyler Perry Studios does the whole touring and of the studios. Uh, I wonder what his archivist is working on there. Is even Does he even think about that? And he's not the only one because there are other. I think of someone like TV1, Kathy Hughes.
Yep.
Like, I love Unsung and Uncensored, and all of those things that really are capturing Black media. Are we keeping up with it though? Are
Yeah.
we keeping it, or is somebody else housing it for us? And yeah, uh, backups, safeguards, all sorts of things. Because who's to say? We all think things digital don't die, but they do. They can die. They could be taken away. So it's like, yes, you can remove it from the Smithsonian website, or you can remove it from the military website. You can remove this information. That does not mean it dies. It does not mean nobody has access to it now. But I think 30 years from now, 50 years from now, if
Hmm.
those things disappear, are there still going to be storytellers? Are there still going to be people? You know, there were a lot of things that we would not know about had it not been for storytellers. Certain riots, such as Tulsa, Rosewood, we wouldn't have known about those things had not human beings been able to tell their story, because it was wiped out of. I think it was maybe one or two headlines in a newspaper, and then it's
Um,
forgotten in history.
yeah.
But those survivors never stopped telling their stories, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like things can get lost in history, but and sometimes want it to be rewritten. But are we doing a good enough job keeping our own history too? Sometimes, and sometimes it's just continuing to tell these stories and continuing to, I know we depended a lot on digitizing things, but we still got to take good care of the hard copies. you gotta you gotta keep them safe. Um, a lot of things I learned when I did take an archiving class, moisture free, all of those things, because they're lost. Once they're lost, they're you don't get them back. Not the physical copies of stuff.
Yeah. Um, I think that's a perfect place to end.
Okay,
I think that's a perfect place to end. I like to leave people with like
something to think about.
yes, absolutely. Every time, every episode.
Mm,
That's the goal anyway.
I
Um,
know. I
yes.
hope. I hope that they enjoy learning a little bit about Black librarianship from me.
I, I
It's still a journey.
yeah, it is still a journey. Yeah. I learned some things. So yeah, it was definitely um interesting to hear your library story and everything. So I thank you for sharing that with me and with um our listeners and everything. And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out.
I am honored to be one of your guests, and so thank you, Marquita. And again, hey, you were there on the early stages of the graphic novel club. You were that you were that. Let's go. We could do this. So I miss that. I miss that. Not that Yeah,
Yeah, you still work there? I don't.
I know, I know. But all right, Marquita, thank you for having me.
For more information, you can visit us online at www.blackinthestacks.com and find us on most social media platforms at Black in the Stacks.